out when he wants for Shirky. When he gets Mamouche back, and he gets I'm just trying to think who else he's got out at the moment, but he can rotate in the wide areas. He's already doing that, of course, because Doku didn't play last weekend. So, but if he gets to the stage where it looks likely that they're more likely to win a Champions League than the league, and he's safe with his European position, I think, why would you not want to prioritise winning the Champions League if that's the thing that you want? Because you can't win the Premier League, and that's, they're the two main trophies. So yeah, you would. I think any club would, though, wouldn't they? Any club would.
I don't disagree with
the only thing you've got to do is keep players match fit, haven't you? You've just got to make sure that those players are match sharp. So you can give them a rest when you need to, but you've still got to make sure that they're match sharp. So it's no good just sort of thinking, I'm going to prioritise the Champions League now. I'm going to rest Haaland for all these league games, because he's not playing enough games.
You're not going to
when he plays his Champions League game, he's not going to be sharp, is he? So he will have to play games. But if you want to give him a game off there now and then, because you're not likely to win the league, and you've got an opponent who you're probably going to beat without him, you're going to do that. So yeah, I think, in answer to your question, yeah, he could do that in some form, in some way, but he's still got to keep players fit and that's the reason why managers do carry on playing players a lot of the time. They don't want them not to be match fit for the big games, because they need them to be in that rhythm, don't they? Week in, week out. You give them the odd break because what they do is sports science now, DG. They look at their numbers. They're looking at numbers all the time. How many minutes they played, how many sprints they made.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're looking at all this data. Then you're deciding whether that player can have a break. And I think that's what they take into account.
So then flip that to Arsenal, then it's like, how does Arteta find the balance? Because sometimes I think I'm a bit weird, because I do think some of our fans, they do too much. This one needs to be rested. I don't think you can get consistency without playing these players. Equally, though, I do hear the fans and understand there is occasions to rest Bukayo or this one or that one. Like, if there's anyone that I'm angry at through our centre-backs being injured last season, it was Arteta, because didn't we beat PSV like 7-1 or something? My centre-halves are still out there, but how does he find that balance? Because as you said, like, you've got to find that balance of, resting them when they need to be rested, but also playing them so they don't look a bit rusty. Like, obviously it's above our pay grade. We're not managers, but like, how does he find that? Because even with the fixture list, like, where's the rest coming from? Because even someone like Brighton in the League Cup, you would think that would be the case, but you might need to play a strong team, maybe potentially your biggest, strongest team. I can only see Slavia Prague, but where are you at with that?
Well, I think first of all, I think he'll be silly not to learn from last season where he overplayed certain 100%. Players. I think he had to last year. He had to overplay certain players, because we had players. And the other thing I think another key part of the season will be getting that discipline into the team. So, like, if you remember last year, we kept getting players sent off, didn't we, at the start of the season? And some of them were very unjust.
You think back to the being at the ground with the Rice one against Brighton.
Yeah, I mean the Rice one. I was in the ground like you. I couldn't fucking believe that. Excuse my language. I couldn't believe it. And then the Trossard one, that was crazy. They even stopped doing that towards the end of the season. They stopped sending people off who were preventing the restart of a quick free kick, and even that day they weren't going to get a quick restart because the player was laying on the ground. So I think discipline's important. So then you don't have to keep overplaying players because people are getting bans when they can't play for 2 or 3 games. That's important. I think he would have learned, obviously, that maybe his best, what he would consider his real best players, he can't overplay them. Like Saka, like, he doesn't need to play 75, 80 minutes, 85 minutes. If we're 2 up in a game after 65 minutes, he can bring Madueke on, if he's fit. Well, he's not fit at the moment. So there's the areas I think and answer your question, when you start talking about rotating, I'm not saying he rotates the players out so they don't start the game. They could start the game, but he could decide to take them off earlier once the game, once 60, 65 minutes, And I noticed he's already doing that with Calafiori. So like Calafiori, who now has edged ahead of Lewis Skelly in the pecking order for that left back spot, because he's had a few injury problems in the past, he recognises that maybe, do you know what, 60, 65 minutes, Lewis Skelly's perfectly good footballer. I'll take Calafiori out the action, not just to rest him up. He's done his job. Bring Lewis Skelly on, give him 25, 30 minutes. And I think that's what he can do now. He can do that in other positions. If he wanted to, he could take Ødegaard off and move Eze central. If he wanted to, he could take Saka off for 65 minutes and bring on Madueke. If he wanted to, he could now. If you look at the quality we now got in the centre-half positions, I mean, Mosquera has come in. I know he made the error at Newcastle, but he seamlessly fitted into that back four. He could replace Saliba and Gabriel for the last 25 minutes of the game.
We still got White as well.
Exactly,
Hincapie not even been
and
about yet.
Hincapie, he's a great footballer. So he's got those sort of options now, where even if he's not rotating from in terms of changing the 11, if he wants to, he can take 2 or 3 players out of the action after 65 minutes if we're in control of a game and bring other people on. So I think that's one thing I hope he's learned. I think also there will be games where people need to be rested. I think that Brighton game, I know we want to win that Carabao Cup. It'd be nice to win it, but I do think he's going to change it up a bit with maybe, you could.
That's where you wanted Madueke, like that game
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is where you want
If he
Madueke.
was fit, you could have a.
Yeah.
I was thinking the other day. I was saying to Potsy, basically, I know they're not fit at the moment, but you could have a front line of Madueke, Havertz, and one of Trossard and Martinelli, and you give Saka a rest, you give Gokkeridze a rest. He could play Marino and Nwaneri in midfield. He could give Norgard a game, and he can change the whole back four. He could have White if they're all fit. He could have White, Hincapie, Mosquera, and Luis Skelly, couldn't he? And Kepa in goal. So, and to me, that's a good, strong side. And he could have
as a second choice.
Here's a decent line. He could have somebody like Gokkeridze or Saka on the bench if we need, if it's 1-1 and that last half hour we need something extra. That's the way he could rotate and use the squad this season. So, yeah, I think he would have learnt that. I hope he has, and I think he is saying himself that possibly some of the rhythm early in the season where people were saying he had the handbrake on, it was more a case he was rotating in certain areas that didn't quite give him the same as he had. Exactly. Yeah.
I think you're bang on. I got to ask you as well, because we've given Arteta his fair praise, and obviously his criticisms were due. You can't criticize Berta at all. The only thing I would say, not even a criticism, is I would have liked nine players instead of 8, because I still think we've missed a trick with left wing, but we'll get on to that. And we ain't really changed our reputation in terms of sales, but cool, Berta's doing his thing. Arteta, you've got all the tools. The Cronkies, because how do you feel about the Cronkies? Because obviously everyone's been onto them. We're not quite at the Cronky out stage, and I know they might not be the best owners, but when I personally feel, Graham, when I look at them as much as I can, from what I read and see, they put people in positions in it, and just leave them to do what they're doing. So I've accepted that. I think they've backed Arteta from the beginning, but then you've brought in a competent Berta, and then obviously you've got 8 players now. And to be fair, you lot backed Arteta when he didn't have a CV, and we're in these conversations. So I can't really poke fun at you or do the whole KSC out thing. But how do you look at the owners? There's even talk about upgrading the stadium as well.
Yeah. I think you just nailed it there in one of the things you said. You said they backed Arteta from the beginning. And I think they have. I think they have backed Arteta right from the start. They've given him money all the way through his tenure, and also the other good thing, the thing you said I agree with, is you said they put people in place and allowed them to get on with it, and they have, and they put Berta in place, and that has worked.
Changed as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they've done. I don't think you can criticise the owners at the moment. I think they've done what you'd expect, and so I don't think that we can really criticise them in any way. They've backed the manager. They've put people in place that have paid the money to get good people in quality positions to help the manager. And the board, the backroom staff he's got set up now, the sporting director, the coaches, the set piece coach, everything we've got is because they've been willing to invest into the club. And I think they have done that. And I think they have backed him. I mean, in the past, we didn't have that backing. Emery never had that backing. He was like buying players off the back of fag packets almost, and basically even Wenger. And of course, we knew about the stadium. When we moved to that new stadium, we had to take a hit. We couldn't keep our best players. We couldn't buy the best players, and we went through that. But I think things have now changed at Arsenal since Arteta come in, and I think that he's now had that backing, and now with the stadium move as well, that's the next part that they're looking at. So you could argue, you can't really argue they're not backing him. I think they backed him from day one, and that's why I think that they are not going to get rid of him. I think even if he was, unless he was going to have a complete disastrous season,
exactly.
then you have no excuse. But if he keeps, I don't think we're going to have that, and that's what I was trying to say to Potsy the other night. I think we've got a really good bunch of players now that we're always going to be challenging. So at the end of the day, this was an interesting scenario. I said this to Potsy, right? And I'm not saying, and some guy pulled me up in the comments on Potsy's video saying, sort of criticised that I was up Arteta's arse, which I wasn't, at the end of the day.
You're not allowed to praise
Arteta. No, you're not. But the point I was making is, imagine, right, I'll ask you this question, right?
Go ahead.
We go into that last game of the season against Crystal Palace. The last game in the Premier League season is Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. We need a point to win, right? To win the league. Right, so just a point. Don't matter what Liverpool do, as long as we get a point, we win the league. It's 1-1. It's in the 96th minute, 6 minute of injury time of 7 minutes. Dockeries goes round the goalkeeper, who pulls him down. The referee gives a penalty on field. He's then sent to the video screen by PGMOL Stockley Park, and basically they overturn it, and it's no penalty. That costs Arteta the league. Would you sack him then?
I think first we need to riot outside Stockley Park, because that would be the short.
Well, that's the answer. We need to be, and that's the point, isn't it? Because basically we need to be in a position now. We don't have to rely on PGMOL or these borderline decisions. Because football is definitely a game of fine margins at times, But basically, I'm saying that I think decisions sometimes, if he has something go majorly wrong where it's out of his control, there's an argument for him, isn't there, that's saying that he would have won the league but for that. You could argue at the same time, maybe if he'd managed the team better during the season, we wouldn't be going into the last game needing a point. So there's that.
That's what I was going to say, Graham. That's what I was
that's
say.
It. It's an interesting debate, isn't it? But I think we're going to be there and thereabouts. I do think he's going to win a title. If he doesn't do it this year, I hate to say next year, because I'm starting to sound like fucking Patrick Eze, Netflix FC. So I better not say that. But you know what I'm saying. I do think he's going to get there, mate. I do think he's going to get there, and I do think it's going to be this year. I'm the most positive I've been for a while, DG. Same. I don't know about you. I am positive, and that's why
I think we've
got I don't want to see this negativity. I just want us to be, as a fan base, I want us to be really positive. When I'm in that stadium, I'm really invested more in well, not that I've never invested, because I'm like a young kid when I'm in that stadium. I love looking at the tactics of games, but when I'm in that stadium, I'm a fan like everybody else, screaming at the fucking referee. I'm screaming at the players when they make a bad pass. I just want us to win those games, but I'm totally invested, and basically I do think I like what I see most times, more often than not. So, and I do think we've got the quality there to do it, and so. I've lost track of your question now. What was it?
No, you asked me a question.
I'm going off on a tangent here, aren't
I? No, that's why you're here. I took it left because I started saying anything. But going back to what you said, on one hand, I would be like, all right, cool. You know what? The penalty went against us, blah, blah, blah. We have to keep you. But I do, and you know me, I'm like yourself. We like to talk about the little talking points and the nuances and fine-tune everything. But I must admit, on one hand, I'd cut him a luxury. On another hand, my immediate thought would be like, you know what? Bottom line, you finished second, didn't it? Like, bottom line, you have not got over the line. I know it's harsh, but like, you've done well for us. We need to get over the line, and you might just be the man before the man, really. Like, obviously, I want everyone to be here, but at the same time, you might not be the guy that necessarily gets to pick the fruit from the tree that you obviously planted, didn't it? Really, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Do you think if he goes? Imagine we don't get over this line this year and he goes. Would you be worried that you say we got the players there? Would you be confident they'd all stay? If a new manager come in, would he not want to change that squad? With certain players who probably been loyal to Arteta start looking, if he's gone, I might be thinking of going. Do you think that that's a danger? I don't know what you're thinking. They always say sometimes this argument about be careful what you wish for. But I do think sometimes in the past there's been managers out there who, when Wenger stayed too long, didn't he? We could have got a Klopp. We could have Pep or Klopp. When you think about it, what we could have had. So there is that argument. I get that. There is that argument. I do think if you don't get over the line this year, he'd be seen as almost like the perennial bridesmaid. So I do think he has to do that.
That's why I need him to pick up some domestic trophies at the very minimum. If you can't win, obviously we want the Prem, we want the champs. But I genuinely feel, since we won the FA Cup, had you have won an FA Cup here, League Cup here, maybe a one Prem, I'm not going to say there wouldn't be pressure, because this is Arsenal Football Club, isn't it? But there would be be less pressure. And to go back to what you said, all of that is facts, really. Again, I think a lot of people that want a new manager, I'm exaggerating, but if you want a new manager, you have to accept that new manager has to be able to tear up everything. You might see Declan Rice, he's not in favour anymore. Your favourite young players gone and things like that. But that's where I'm kind of at in that. When you look at the journey we've been on, if we won a Premier League, I'd be happy and excited. But the first people I would kind of hail up, Graham, it would be actually the Zinchenko's, the Jesuses, the Ramsdales, the Tomiyasus,
Yeah.
like the people that were kind of like the four-founders before we got here. So like not everyone can be part of the journey, and sometimes that might not be the gaffer. I want it to be Arteta because I like him. I actually think you won't be out of a job long. If you was to leave Arsenal, you're not gonna like you would be someone that gets phone calls. I'm not saying you get the jobs and whatnot, but I do think for me, I always have to remember, as much as I have admiration for Arteta, I'm an Arsenal fan, and this isn't just happy-go-lucky. Like, as much as you're doing us a favor, we're doing you one. As I said earlier, I admire you for taking this job because you never had a CV and whatnot. But this is Arsenal Football Club, and you've made me start to believe it's not Wenger, Graham, but it's like ultimately you're dying by the high standards you've set. You told me about winning Premier Leagues. You're flirting with it. Now I want you to get over the line because like you said, when have we said we've got a great squad, we've got a great 11, we don't want these players to go? These guys need to go down in Emirates folklore. Now I'm exaggerating, but 20 years from now, shitter players that have won stuff here are going to be remembered. Like the fans deserve it, man. But even that, Graham, like, is a League Cup or an FA Cup, will it suffice? Because like what we said earlier, yeah, when you see Newcastle and Palace and all these teams winning trophies, football fans are doing the whole, trophy's a trophy, Arteta can't go over the line, even a League Cup would matter, second doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Now, if we was to zoom past to the May of 2026, I think those same fans that are saying that, they will change their tune. But like, do you think a League Cup and FA Cup is enough to save some level of face? God forbid if we don't win a major.
I mean, I've got to be honest with you, with a lot of the fan base, I don't think it will. Because if you think back to, even if you think back to when Wenger was there in the last few years, we were still winning FA Cups, weren't we? Even though we weren't great, we were still in the league. We were still winning FA Cups. But then, and I think that wasn't enough to save him. I mean, even his last year, he went into his last season at Arsenal. We won the FA Cup the previous year, so that didn't save him, did it? So, no. Well, I think it might. It's almost like you feel if he won a trophy, that would at least, to a certain extent, hemorrhage the bleeding, maybe, if you want to use that analogy. But I don't think I think it's going to quickly start gushing open again if he doesn't win a Premier League or a Champions League.
Yeah,
this is massive, right? Because I think if we were to win a Champions League or a Premier League, I honestly believe it could be the start of something. You know what I mean? Like the start of a even bigger evolution at Arsenal. If you win that big league, a big title, sorry, that does. I think those players then go. They've tasted that success and they want to do it again. And I just think it'll lead to a lot of things. You always run the risk of not tying down your best players like your Salibas and your Sakas to long-term deals if you're not winning big trophies.
They believe in this to a degree.
But the thing is, DG, the thing is, that's one thing that Berta's doing really well, because what he's done over the last few weeks, he's tied down Saliba to 2030, which is brilliant, really. And now we're working on Saka. If he can get these players tied down, that at least does give me a little bit more reassurance, because basically I'm always Edu will still be on the beach, mate. So, but I'm just saying that if we get these players tied down, it does give me a bit more reassurance, because if they're not winning, all these players have got a short shelf life in professional football at the top level, and they want to win trophies. So if they're not winning trophies at Arsenal, they want to go elsewhere. I think the fact that they're being tied down at Arsenal now by Berta tells me that they've got every confidence. They think they're going to win leagues and Champions Leagues with Arteta.
And I do think with France, what you just said.
Exactly. There was a bit of banter there between him and Kanate, weren't they, when they were signing signatures? I don't know if you saw that, but you know, I do think winning, in answer to your question, winning a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup might buy him a bit of time. But I think if he hasn't won a Champions League or a league by next year and won a trophy this year, or if we start badly next year, in one of those, in the league, for example, I think the questions that have always been asked, the doubts re-emerge, don't they?
There's a lot of pitchforks, Graham, out for Arteta. There's a lot of people with
pitchforks. There is. I mean,
I believe in being fair.
Yeah, I don't mind people having their point of view. I don't mind those people who don't think Arteta's a man. I've got no problem with that. You know, you can have that opinion. The only thing I want is when you're in that stadium and I go to the home games, I just want everybody behind the team, behind Arteta.
As you should be. It's like a family.
Because when we go to the pub after the game, football hasn't changed. You've got social media now saying all those things that people seem to resent at Arteta out. But back in my day, we used to walk into pubs when I was in my early 20s. we didn't have social media then, but we still walked in the ground and said that manager's got to fucking go. You know, that's always been part of football fans' culture and the way we. That's
social media is exaggerated and blown it up now.
Exactly, social media now has exaggerated it to a point where these debates are happening more frequently and putting more pressure maybe on them.
It's all white and black. It's not talking real football. It's all agenda driven drivel. If I'm completely honest with you, like when people say,
Sky drive a lot of it, don't they? To be honest, I mean,
and Arsenal fans need to stop fighting debate. If we don't react and engage, they might just stop. But that's never going to happen. I'm relying on thousands of Arsenal fans to ignore it. We know what Gary Neville does. We know what Jamie Carragher does. We know how Paul Scholes is. You mentioned Arsenal. We're keeping the light bills on, and it's never going to change. They're not going to be. They're always going to be disingenuous. We celebrate. We're condemned. Other teams celebrate, and Maresca runs the length of the thing. It's amazing. I remember Arteta moving out of his technical area, and people are getting onto him. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That is A1 gaslighting. But you know what? I expect us to be hated. I don't necessarily care. If you don't support Arsenal, I don't really care what you want. But that's why I want us to get over the line, because you can say whatever you want as long as we've got history. Even to the point where some people say, oh, the Invincibles weren't that good. They had 11, 12 draws. Okay, did they lose a game? No, they didn't. You can say what you want. They're invincible. They made history. Or the City teams or the Jose teams, etc. That's where we're at now. And when I see, especially this summer, like, you know, when you've brought in Gyökeres at 27, Eze the same, going back a few years, 105 million on Declan Rice, and on top of everything else we're doing, we've got something. Like, we've actually got something. And like you said, and I believe it as well, when you get that first major, it might kick something off, man, because it's very, I guess it's very difficult to go back to the previous life when you start winning. So it'd be interesting. Graham, I want to ask you about Gyökeres as well, because we kind of touched over him. For me, I don't know how to feel, Graham. I do believe, I'll say this to you. I do believe in him. I do think you get it done. I have accepted you're not going to be the most beautiful footballer. I do think you fit in because the general play and all that kind of jazz. I do think you're a fighter. I still think we could create more chances. I feel up until the Newcastle game, he wasn't really getting any service. I feel from Newcastle, Olympiacos, and West Ham, it's more on your kind of decision making. And I just wonder, like, you ain't scored in 6 games. Are you thinking about things too much? Where are you at with Gyökeres? I understand, you know, he's being doubled up against and all that stuff, but where are you at? His national team gaffer backed him as well, said you don't understand football if you criticize Gyökeres as well.
Well, I look, I'll be honest with you, he's not Erling Haaland, right? So we know that, okay? But at the same time, I think what I've seen, you know, when we went into the market, I thought he was the best of what was available to us at the time. You know, I did a video on AFTV where basically with James, where I basically talked about Sesko, you know, because basically it looked like we were getting Sesko, and I was trying to find an argument for why Sesko was the right man. But me personally, and the people that know me, even James will tell you, that basically I wanted Gyökeres at Arsenal because basically I see him as a proper centre forward, because somebody who gets across the box, you know, he's looking to get on the end of crosses. I don't think we've had that at Arsenal, and I know he missed that opportunity against West Ham. He didn't quite get there, but I was at the ground against Nottingham Forest where he did get on the end of an Eze cross.
The kind of goals I want Gyökeres to score.
Yeah, that's that. We haven't had that type of, even in that goal. If you think back to the goal we scored against West Ham, it came from where Zubimendi played that really lovely pass into Eze. And when the keeper saved it, Gyökeres was in there trying to force it over the line, and it fell to Declan Rice, who smashed it in. I think I like him, right? All right, the goal, and I think the goals will come. I just think we need to be slightly patient. He's got 3 in 10, which is not outstanding numbers. You know, we wanted a 25 goal a season striker, but he's come from a Portuguese league where basically he was scoring every week because the strength of the opposition wasn't as strong as it is in the Premier League. You have to accept that, and he's had to get used to his new teammates as they've got to get used to him. So it was never. I know Haaland did really quickly and got off to a flyer, right, at Man City.
Yeah, but he's a robot. This is a human being.
But he is just something exceptional. We've got to accept that. But I thought we got the best we could of the strikers who were around at that time, who we could have got who were available. And I think I've seen things in his game that I like. I think he's a very selfless player. I think he does a lot of good running off the ball. I think he's as I said earlier, I think he's played in different roles to help the team depending on who've been the players around him. I think that he offers that threat in behind, which I think, you know, we might see in the next few games. hit him a bit earlier, you might see him taking advantage of that. I don't see his head getting down because he's not scoring. I still see him absolutely making those same runs. I see him still showing up. I see him involved in the build-up. He's
not hiding.
He's in the duels. So I think you just got to give him a bit of time. I think the goals will come. I don't think he's going to get 25 league goals. The reason I say that is because I think you'll find Havertz, when he gets fit, will play a few more games. So he's not going to get all the games. But I do think that he will get us 15 league goals this season. I do think that. He's got 3. I know there was interesting debate.
I got killed for saying that was a good season in the summer for him, but go on, Graham.
Yeah, there was interesting debate we had over Saturday in the stadium. You know, when the penalty was given, should it go to Gyökeres because, you know, it would have helped him basically to get another goal. Would have given it, or do you go with your main penalty taker, Saka? I understood why they went with Saka, and I'm quite comfortable with Saka taking it. But I'm just saying that sometimes a lot of strikers' goals, even Gyökeres when he was in the Portuguese league, did come from penalties, didn't they? So, and if you're taking penalties like Isaac, for example, is not going to get as. He was a Newcastle's penalty taker last season. That was part of the number of the goals he got. He's not going to be taking penalties at Liverpool, is he? It's going to be Salah.
And as an Arsenal fan, you might not even get penalties like you saw against Newcastle.
So I'm comfortable with Gyökeres. I although he hasn't been getting the goals, that's the only thing that I think I've been slightly disappointed with. I still think he's a good striker, and I still think he's going to deliver for us enough this season for us to be happy that we bought him. And I think you got to see him as a long-term player, you know.
And he's 27, probably signed a 4 or 5 year deal. Going to have no choice.
Yeah. I know he's at his peak, isn't he? So I still think we can get 3 good years out of him, 3 or 4 good years out of him. I'm okay with it, really. I'm not that bothered about him not scoring, as long as he's contributing to the team. But you know, some people might think different. I respect everybody's views, but I think if he could get 15 league goals this year, I think that would be a good return. I do think we share the goals around the team more. Man City play for Haaland at the moment, don't they? As simple as that. And I think that we have always been a team that have shared the goals around. But this thing about we needed a 25 goal striker, I think that, you know, as long as we got a forward, a genuine centre forward, is somebody who offers what centre forwards do, that is just as invaluable as somebody who bangs in 25 goals. As much as I'd love to see a centre forward bang in 25 goals, but you know, as long as he's contributing to the team, I think some of those half chances will turn into goals in the next few games. Let's judge him. Let's judge him at Christmas, DG. Yeah, that's the way.
The only thing I would say, like I agree with you because I was actually a big fan of Sesko. I thought we'd get Sesko, like, and I still maintain that I was happy with Gyökeres or Sesko. For me, why I wanted Gyökeres is because on paper, you're not the Arsenal guy, innit? Like, you're not. You can do the intangibles, but you're not the kind of striker we go for. And if I want Arteta to do things differently, you're presenting him with a different option where you've got no choice. I've got no issues. The one thing I would say about Gyökeres, I don't want you to be selfish. Like, I understand, you know, fans that wanted Saka to give him the penalty because we did that with Havertz, etc. I don't really care about that personally because at the end of the day, it's 1-0. You know how football goes. Saka's playing his 200th game. Saka's our first choice pen taker. Put the ball in the back of the net. If Saka missed, then yeah, I might entertain that. But I want the 3 points first, then dissecting things later type of thing. Yeah. The one thing I would say, Graham, though, is I think he needs to watch Diego Costa. Like, I want him to be a bit mean or like a bit like Costa or Alex Shearer. Like, he's a brute in that, but I want him to be a bit more of a bastard. I think he's almost too nice. I think he's still finding his way, but I think there's someone in there. Like, I think there's a bastard in there. But the only way, I
think you're spot on. I think you're spot on, mate. The one thing I would say about him is you've got to remember, unlike Sesko, he wanted to come to Arsenal. So basically, he wanted to come to Arsenal, and unlike Sesko, he wanted to take the penalties. When Sesko basically was in that penalty shootout against Grimsby, I don't want to see my centre forward not taking the penalty. You know, he didn't, almost like he didn't have the guts to take a penalty. So the one thing about Gyökeres is I think he's got, and I agree with you, I want to see him a bit more of a bastard as well. I want to see him like that, you know, and I like a Costa type forward as well, someone who's like that. You know, that's back in my. Bully. When I was growing up, that's what centre forwards were in the league. So, and I'd love to see a player like that. I do think he could be like that as this season evolves. But the thing I do like about him, he's got tremendous confidence in his ability. He's not frightened of missing. He's not someone who's he doesn't duck a challenge, and that's what he showed. And he wanted to come to the club. It's no good having players who don't want to play for Arsenal. Sesko didn't want to play for us, so basically, you know, he can fuck off. Basically, I mean, basically. But the thing about Jota is he wanted to come. He's totally invested in this team. He celebrates. I see him celebrate. You know, as a forward who. You think he'd be selfish. I want that goal. I've got to get that goal. But when another player scores, he's equally happy for them. So that just shows.
When Eze set him up, he ran over straight to Eze. Like, thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. He didn't do his trademark celebration for that. He came straight round and complimented Eze on the pass, didn't he? So he's definitely a team man. I just think that he's going to get better, and I think the goals will come.
I agree. The one thing I would say is away from Gyökeres, yeah. I do look at that Liverpool's Hugo Ekitike and I think, oh, you know what? Like, not that I wouldn't have, not saying we shouldn't have had Gyökeres. I just think that skill set would have been perfect, but it's neither here nor there. You've got a question though, Graham. DJ, I have a question for Graham. Is Graham happy? Charles, I think I need to kind of decide what you're saying. I think he's saying, will you be happy if our main striker last season would just be a goal threat with 15 odd goal contributions, or would you prefer a striker with 20 plus goal contributions with no in-game play? So would you rather just a goal scorer, someone that's going to bag, that just bags, but they're not involved in general, well, someone that gets 15, but their general play is good, or if they get 20 plus goals, but they've got nothing else, like which would you prefer?
I prefer someone whose general play is good and they get 25 goals.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I get his question. I'll get his question because his question more is aimed at really. That's what Erling Haaland is, isn't he? He doesn't offer anything else. He just bangs in 25, 30 goals. So,
but they're not around too much.
That's interesting, isn't it? I think to be honest, you know, maybe. There is something to be said for that. I think that if you've got a centre forward who's banging in 25, 30 league goals, you obviously want that, don't you? I'm just saying you would rather have that. I'll be honest with you. But if he's not banging in 25, 30 league goals, as long as he's doing, you know, he's helping the team out in all the other areas and he's banging in 15, I'd accept that. But no, in answer to his question, I'd want a guy banging in 25. If you could tell me, if we had Haaland banging in 30 league goals, you know,
I don't care about general play. Then
you wouldn't care about anything else, would you? So that's a good point he makes. So I probably agree with him on that.
It's true, but like you said there, Graham, like unless maybe you know and I don't, but there's not a Haaland for everybody, and he's only at one team and he's superhuman. So we're gonna have to mix and blend, and that's why I keep saying on my YouTube channel, like I think us fans need to understand whether you rate a player or you got concerns. If we had a toolbox, all of these players are tools in it, at least for 6 months for some players or the whole year. There's going to be times to utilize Jesus and Trossard and Havertz when he's back and Ødegaard when he's back, which is why I'm bitterly disappointed that I finally was about to see Eze, Ødegaard, and obviously Declan Rice, but it got cut short with Ødegaard. And it sucks with Ødegaard. We're gonna need all our players. I wanted to ask you, Graham, who would be your player of the season so far?
Because
I got two.
Of the new signings or generally? I think the player who's really impressed me this season. I don't know what your subscribers think, and they'll obviously tell me what they think. But the one who's impressed me is Duran Timber.
Yeah,
I think he's the best right this season. He's one of the, for me at the moment. I'm not saying he's the best right back in the league. I'm not saying that. I mean, people who love Reece James will make an argument for Reece James, right? But this season he has been on the